and 9 o'clock. We'll start with an invocation.
As we gather here today, we pray that we are ever mindful of opportunities to render our service to fellow citizens and to our community. We ask you to guide those who, as our government leaders, make their daily decisions that affect us, so that their efforts, whether international or local, shall be motivated by the same great rule of charity and goodwill. Let us continue to strive to make a better world. Amen.
Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I guess I'd be remiss if I didn't say welcome back, everybody. It's good to be back in Town Hall for the first time. And it's good to see the new members here for the first time. Welcome to, you're used to this room, but now you're really getting used to it. So that's great to have you here. Great to be back. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the approval of the final agenda.
Mayor?
Yes, sir.
I was wondering if we could move the state of local emergency thing from phase one discussion from council member items into the agenda in case there's something we need to vote on.
Objection here.
I'll move to approve the final agenda as amended by Mr. Veach.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Objection? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, the next item, we're honored today to have the mayor of Sanibel here with us, Mayor Kevin Ruane, who's going to speak to us with us on the Lake Okeechobee release schedule. Mayor Ruane. That's a good question.
Right there.
Right there,
Okay,
sir.
there you go.
In the center.
Good morning, Kevin Ruane for the record, Mayor of Sanibel. I'm also the president of Florida League of Mayors. I come to you this morning, obviously in the middle of a pandemic, we have enough to do right now on our hands full, but there's some anxiety growing between water supply and obviously the estuaries as far as something that we go back to in 2000 called the Water Supply and Environment, also known as the WSC. That used to be the lake regulation schedule back in 2000, and that was until 2008. Inside that, there was a savings clause which basically predominantly had an interest to save water, to allow water supply to get their water. What was certainly known, if you look at 2008 lures and moving forward, that schedule was supposed to be temporary and certainly was in place a lot longer than intended. However, when you compare WSE, the original model, and the Lake Okeechobee release schedule for 2008, the model got much better. So what happened was during the high flows, we received less water, and during the low flows, we received more water. So we're very encouraged with 2008. LOSUM right now is just an advanced schedule. It's Lake Okeechobee Schedule Operating Manual. The intent was really to address all users. So right now what's going on is there's a group that would like to put the savings clause back into LOSUM, which it isn't currently right now. They also would like the opportunity to make sure that we hold the lake higher, and that gives us great anxiety. For the last 2 years, certainly 2019 and 2020, the only tool we really had was managing the lake, and we managed it in an effective way, so you saw the clarity that we've seen out in the waterways the last 2 years. Furthermore, when you think about what we've just gone through, it certainly could be a concern of most people. Will Congress, will the state have the money to fund the projects at the pace they're going to? We're still very much behind in the funding of those issues, and now with a pandemic, I don't know what that looks like. Managing the lake is really important, and for the record, I certainly want all users to receive water they're supposed to, just like I don't want to receive any more water than we need. And that's really the rub in the yin and the yang. There was a lawsuit, as you all are aware of, actually filed by Water Supply Interest. And really the lawsuit was not to keep the lake as low as it did. The East Coast certainly has advocated on the record to have it go down to about 10.5 feet. And that gives people some anxieties. That's at the lower end of the span as it's defined in Lures 2008. So that's really the issue. Today, we're trying to come together as obviously a community, not only yours ours, but in Lee County, why it's so important that we don't insert a savings clause into LOSUM. We don't necessarily try to have one interest prevailing over another. That's really not what we're looking to do. You know, the good thing about, LOSUM and really what was taking place is over the last 2 years, there's been more public meetings. There's been more opportunities for the public to weigh in on that. And now it seems like 2 years later, there's a group coming together. And I recognize that everybody's concerned. Water supply, why are they concerned? It's their water. It's how they obviously feed themselves, through obviously having enough water for that. It's also the secondary use supply water. So it's really something they might, in a secondary capacity, use for drinking water. The issue you're going to have with that is it's challenging, as we all know, the releases and some of the toxicity inside the lake. I don't know if that could address those concerns, but nevertheless, we want to make sure they get their water, but in the same token, when there's too much water, I'm not looking for the hold on the lake. More importantly, I don't want the extra water. During the dry season, I want it. During the wet season, I don't want it. There's a group to try to certainly indicate we need to hold the lake between 12 and 15 and a half feet. I'd rather have science actually dictate what we're supposed to do here, not necessarily one group over another. And that's the reason for me being here today, to try to just put this on the record, to make sure you all understand I'm not only taking it to local areas within Lee County, but I'm going to continue to do as the president of Florida League of Mayors, make sure that all users benefit, not just one.
Thanks, Mayor. What can we do for you? How can we help?
Honestly, I wanted to bring it to your attention first and foremost. We're going to put together a letter, obviously, throughout Lee County as all the mayors are coming together on this. We understand the damaging effects of this and what it could do. And honestly, what we don't want to do is go back in time. 20 years ago, this was an applicable device. And again, the record, I'm not advocating that water supply interests shouldn't receive their water. They're permitted. They're allowed to have water, and I want them to have water. I don't necessarily want our communities to really collateral damage. So, Mayor, what we're going to do is put together a letter. We're going to ask all 6 mayors to sign it. Okay, I'll make sure you receive it. It's drafted, and we're going to continue that process throughout. It's our advocacy. It's how we continue to make sure our voice is heard. It's unfortunate right now that this is coming during a situation where we have our hands full to begin with, but timing, certainly you don't pick your timing. Sometimes you have to just deal with it. That's why I'm here.
A question for Mayor Wayne?
First off, if I may, Mayor, I'd like to thank you for your guidance in helping me draft another letter from us. I think that, in conversations with Kevin and some others, that his approach is great, but I think we can also do multiple approaches. On his advice, he suggested some targets for this, that said this is first in committees, right, the Rules Committee and the Transportation Committee. There are some members in those committees that are from our home states. I know that Jim Adderholt came up with a good idea during the campaign of trying to mobilize some of the snowbirds that are in different jurisdictions. I saw one of the names on the House Transportation Committee was from Indiana. So I think there may be a good conversation to be had about how we can mobilize some of these other forces on this. So one letter from 6 mayors is great. Getting letters from lots of citizens also could be effective and help with the cause. And when I drafted the letter that you guys have, I took a little bit different approach than Kevin. I used a lot of the facts and things initially, but then I tried to make a more personal appeal at the end to just. Instead of everyone getting the same form letter, I think it's more effective if we have different voices speaking to the same topic. And I would also reiterate what he says. We're not looking to starve anybody of water. We're not looking to manage the lake for the exclusive benefit of us. It's a shared resource. We just want the intent was that everyone should share the burden and the pain of the lake levels and the uneven availability of water evenly. We shouldn't take the brunt of it while others are managing it exclusively for them.
Furthermore, Mayor, if I will, certainly agree with the council member. Our approach is really to start locally like we always have. Certainly to further expand that, it's to go to all mayors throughout the state that certainly want to get behind this. And then what you do is you go within your community. You go to your businesses, you go to your residents, and we start a full launch approach in that regard. It's most effective as you get to Congress and you identify the people that are going to weigh in on this and have an opportunity. The Corps is obviously going to only take direction from Congress. So it's a wait and see at the moment because the Corps hasn't deviated from what they're doing at the moment. There's a concern they might, because obviously this group comes together and obviously influences them, and then they would direct Congress to obviously insert this language. Right now, I'm not there, and I'm not looking to fire that gun yet because it's not necessarily done. But when it is, I think it's more than appropriate not only to have communities within Lee County, but communities throughout Southwest Florida, Southeast Florida, and all throughout the state to weigh in on this as well, because it's going to affect everybody. Back in 2016, we actually had 161 mayors come together. So it started with a local approach, and that's really how we got traction 10 plus years ago. We had a traction that 6 mayors got together. At the time, it was 5, to advocate for something, and we've kind of used that playbook. But what it also does is allow, certainly as a council member had indicated, the community to understand the issue, and then the community get behind it, because obviously that's the effectiveness. I couldn't agree more with the council member. We had conversations about, what's the approach, and don't have just canned, targeted emails. Let's be more specific in nature. I think we'll come up with fact sheets, certainly do that as you were having conversations. Our community, your community, and many other communities have members within Congress. It's essential that we actually approach them as they're the decision-making body, and that's the influence we're going to have.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for being here. I just want to, it's an important issue, and I wanted to have you maybe, particularly with your hat that you're wearing with the President of the League of Cities, could you comment briefly on where we're at, particularly going into this coronavirus state of emergency? As you know, the governor last year put forth a very bold $2.5 billion plan to really revolutionize some of our efforts on the water cleanup issue. And the feds and the state did great last year, actually overfunded what he asked for in a good way. This year, the legislature, I think, appropriated $625 million, which is the appropriate amount to get to the $2.5 billion over. Is that $625 million, in your opinion, is that in jeopardy right now, given the pressures of the virus issue? And is that something that we need to be aware of and encourage our state legislators, state senators to be focused and keep that $625 million focused on what it's been appropriated for?
So, Councilmember, I don't believe it's in jeopardy. The CARES Act provided an awful lot of funding for this, and obviously we want to be concerned about that. The state was rendered a check for $8.3 billion as a result of the CARES Act. Part of that was obviously distributed. You might have seen it. 45% of that was allocated, some $3.7 billion to cities of 500,000 and greater. Only 2.5 of that was actually sent out. The way the allocation went out, it's just the math never added up. So there's still quite a bit of money left over, and we'll see what Congress does over the next coming terms. I can tell you as the mayor, and certainly advocating for the CARES responsibility, there's certainly an act to make sure that government receive their funds as well. So when government does, the state and actually has adequate resources and reserves and might potentially receive some more money, so then our funds aren't in jeopardy. I think what everyone wants to do is infrastructure projects like these are really important. They provide jobs, and right now, every stimuli that's out there is about providing jobs. I don't believe this will be in jeopardy. Nothing that I have in talking to the governor's office, which I do pretty regularly, has any indication that will be, it'll be in jeopardy at all.
That's very encouraging. Thank you. So I guess our next challenge is making sure we continue those dollars next year when it's not an election year and focus continues to kind of draw away from the beautiful water that we're currently having. Is that fair?
Yes. I mean, certainly we also need to make sure that the federal government lives up to their share. Last year was $200 million. This year it's $250 million. We need their, obviously, cost sharing part of this for the projects to move forward, the IDS to move forward in the way we all hope to be. So that's really important. And I think what's most important, and I think what will take place, is when you think about the jobs, they're all infrastructure jobs. And right now, what certainly seems to be meaningful is actually making sure we have people work and have a job. So that's why I'm encouraged.
Thanks for being here.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Else have any questions for the mayor? Mayor, thanks so much for coming out today. And
I just wanted to bring it to your attention. Most importantly, I appreciate your time. As we put together the letter, certainly appreciate talking with Bill, and great letter. We'll put together something, and really what we want to try to do is a very seasoned approach. But right now, until I actually see the Corps taking this, actually inserting it and being influenced by it, We're kind of waiting and seeing, so I don't want to do anything too quickly yet. I don't want to overreact. I don't have any indications the Corps is going to go in this direction after 2 years, so thank you.
I think I can speak for everyone, Mayor, when I say to you, on behalf of the town, thank you for your continued advocacy for clean water, and all we have to do is go out here and look at it right now and know that we're going in the right direction, and you've been no small part of all of that. So we thank you for your help.
Appreciate it. It's our quality of life, obviously, and it's our economy, so thank you.
Thank you,
Have a great
Mayor.
day. Appreciate your time.
Thank you. Okay, the next item is public comment. Have anyone? Do, okay.
Hello, good morning.
Morning.
My name is Sarah Torgerson, and I'm an applicant for the Marine Resources Task Force. And I just wanted to come here this morning and show my face and introduce. I just moved here about a few months ago with my husband to Fort Myers Beach. Really excited to be here. And I really want to get involved. And I am currently a veterinary nurse. I specialize in anesthesia surgery. And I'm looking to, well, one, just really get involved with the community. My passion has always been towards more positive environmentally impact and sustainable life, just in my everyday. And I would like to expand that, ideally career-wise, but first even just as the town I live in. So I just really wanted to share that enthusiasm and there. So,
Hey,
your time.
thank you, Sarah. Any other speakers? Anyone else care to public comment? Okay, we'll move on. Next item is local achievements and recognitions. Start down with you, Dan, and work our way down.
Mr. Mayor, I have nothing as of,
Vice Mayor
Going to pass today as well.
Ratterhall.
I'm going to focus on the beautiful water that we currently have and all the people responsible for it at the federal, state, local, county, town, citizenry level. And Mayor's already done a nice job of talking about that this morning, and our Councilor Veach has done a nice job of helping out. So I don't have anything further to add, but the water is beautiful right now, and I hope we don't take it for granted.
Yeah, I would reach out again to Mayor Ryan, his leadership on this. He's knowledgeable and powerful, and always has the time to help out newbies like us. So I do appreciate his efforts in bringing this to our attention, because a lot of times things happen in the cover of a bigger disaster that affect us in the long term.
Okay, thank you. I just want to recognize all of the people that came to the beach this weekend. I didn't get any negative reports. I just want to thank everybody for continuing the social distancing on the beach, and also keeping the groups down low, and apparently was less of an issue with the garbage this weekend than there was in the prior weekend. So I want to thank everybody for participating, for helping out in this, to continue to enjoy the beautiful beaches that they are right now, and the water as well. So thank you all very much. Excuse me. Okay, the next item is advisory committee items and reports. Are any advisory committees here? No.
I just speak briefly to that.
Sure.
As the liaison, I just wanted to report that the Anchorage Advisory Committee held a Zoom meeting where we looked at I believe it was the 30% plans for the building at Bayfront Park, just to let you all know that there's been a big change in that. If you've been following it, there were issues with where we had originally thought we might locate the building, so there's a completely new plan involved. The Anchorage Advisory Committee was very enthusiastic about how that was dealt with, and I believe it was pretty unanimous that they were excited about the new plans and wanted you to know that they had looked at it.
Great.
Is there a time we're going to talk about these plans?
I believe that Roger said he was going to bring the 30% plans back to us at a future meeting. I'm guessing at a management and planning.
we are reaching out to the consultant to see if he would be available the first week in June, what meeting of those two meetings he would be available.
I happened to see the plans in the manager's office one afternoon while I was in there, and can understand why they were excited about it. They were very impressive.
By the way, I did distribute those to all the members of the council, so you should have those electronically through an email.
Correct.
Is there, just a question, is there a specification in here, like how many restrooms and laundry facilities did, or they just put whatever they could?
They put in, I believe the number is 6, if my memory serves
Six
me
was,
correctly. And that was enthusiastically received by the Anchorage Advisory Committee.
and I believe the plan is that they're hoping to arrange the security so that the restrooms will be open to the public in addition to the mooring field folks have restrooms down there. And I've already talked to Allison about the fact that maybe the TDC would then give us some funding towards part of this project because they are endorsing our plans for other restrooms that we're. So I'm having further discussions with Allison about which parts of this we might be able to pull out for TDC.
So it'd also make the laundry facilities open to the public as
No,
well?
the laundry facility would have a special app that only members of the mooring field could use.
The idea is to have multiple layers of accessibility. So if at one point, let's just say there was a hurricane and people needed to be able to do their laundry beyond people in the mooring field, could allow that or not allow that. So everything's being considered to have layers of accessibility, security.
We're up from, what, 2 restrooms now with our current?
Yes.
Okay. We'll move on. The next item is the approval of minutes. There was a special meeting on May 1st, regular meeting on May 4th, and the management and planning meeting on May 7th. Is there a motion to approve those minutes?
Moved.
Moved.
Second.
It's been moved, seconded. Discussion? Objection? Carries unanimously. Thank you. Okay, we move on to the consent agenda, and the next item is the Edward Byrne AAG grant, which is, this is to support the distribution plan for $184,284 Edward Byrne Memorial Justice Assistant Grant Program funds fiscal year 2019.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
It's been moved. Is there, it's been seconded. Discussion? Any objection? Is unanimously. Move on to the administrative agenda. And the first item is the request for appointment to the local planning agency. Appoint members to the 2019-2020 local planning agency.
I believe we all received an email from the chair of the LPA in which she indicated that she felt there was no rush to move forward with this and really requested that we table it in order to advertise for further candidates. There are 2 openings and we only even have 1 candidate. Great respect for the chair. If she believes that she can continue to function, I'd be willing to table this.
I would concur. I think it's a very important committee, and I think that being the best candidates we can in that. I agree.
Else okay?
Make that a motion then?
I'll second the motion.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say to our friends in the media out there, this is if you're so kind to let the folks know that we do have 2 openings. The council will rely heavily on the LPA for assistance on zoning matters, and it's impactful advisory committee to the town. I had the privilege of serving there for a year and a half, and I really encourage for folks who really want to get involved in the town and really put your finger on the pulse of what's happening, make application to the LPA. It's an opportunity to serve, an opportunity to really understand the workings of the town better, and encourage our friends in the media to write an article about this meeting to mention the need for qualified candidates to come and.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
for the council's information, it has been published. I have received 2 inquiries to fill the vacancy, so there's a total of 3. We'll put that on the next meeting if that is to your liking.
If that's okay with the chair of the LPA, if that's too soon. And three is a pretty good start, huh? And maybe we'll get some more as a result of today's action. Okay. Next item is the appointment for the Marine Resources Task Force. Members to MRF, the Marine Resources Task Force. It appears that we have a little voting to do. Manager, how many, we had 3 applicants for 1 opening.
Mr. Mayor, as the liaison for MRF.
Yes.
Yeah, it's very, very enthusiastic. I don't know whether I'm more concerned that everyone wants to join after I left. But I do appreciate there's really 3 very good candidates for this one position. I've read through the packets, and I do appreciate that Sarah here is enthusiastic. She has her background in veterinary medicine, I think, would be very beneficial. And I appreciate that she not only sent in the packet, she's here now, and she called. I'm not sure if he called you too. And all 3 candidates are very good. I'm not going to any preference yet. Bill Perry, you know, has a long history. He was one of the founding members of MRF. He's not an island resident. He does work on the island. I don't know if that is considered a business on the island if he doesn't have a brick and mortar thing here. But he's the main island beach raker, and he's been pretty active for some time. And then Wendy, I've gotten some enthusiastic approvals for her too with her work that she's done previously with the Osteego Bay, some planting, some other operations, and I think she knows some people that are currently on MRF. So just to get a rundown of the 3 candidates, I think they're all very well qualified, and it's a good place to be that we have 3 very well qualified candidates.
Okay. Any other?
I mean, Mr. Mayor, I just want to also say that the excellent candidates, really very qualified, but I think I was impressed as well. I did get a call from Sarah. She's here today. She's got enthusiasm for this job. But again, with the coronavirus going around and the sort of mysterious potential health impacts of the green algae and the red tide, I think having someone with a medical background is very, very helpful. I also think we sort of have an obligation to look to the next generation of leaders on the island, and I think there would be a great addition to the advisory committee.
Does anyone need a paper ballot?
Just printed the agenda. I forgot about the ballot. Thank you.
On one more than you probably printed, I bet.
Sure, I'll take one if you want, or I could just tell you.
I'll fold them so you could unfold them.
Yeah, here, I'll save you the unfolding.
There should be some background music like a game.
Someone who could sing a short song.
My guitar.
We adopted a new emblem, but we don't have an FMB song yet.
Madam Clerk?
We have 4 votes for Sarah Torgerson and 1 vote for Bill Perry.
Congratulations, Sarah.
Congratulations, Sarah. Welcome on
I'm
board.
sure you'll do a great job. Okay. Move on. The next item is authorize the town manager to execute a contract with Garden State Fireworks. Authorize the execution of the contract with Garden State in the amount of $27,000 for a fireworks show on July 4th, 2020. New Year's Eve is the final cancellation show date, utilizing budgeted funding. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the contract for Garden State. They did come back and extend their time of when we could move it if we need to. I think that was a good compromise.
Second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion.
Yeah, I would like to chirp on this. I think that, we're in a very difficult time here. The COVID-19 infection is not going away anytime soon. We have managed to reduce the infection by enthusiastic commitment of people to sacrifice and to social distancing, which we're now loosening up. I think that it's important to, in our balance between the businesses and health, that we select openings that give us business and freedom without giving risk that is disproportionate to the benefit. The idea of light, even me by New Year's Eve, is having a lot of people shoulder to shoulder downtown for the fireworks, for something that really doesn't have that much of a benefit to businesses, because people are going to be here on the 4th of July anyway. It's a busy time in the beach, and my experience in the beach is a lot of people bring their own fireworks, legal or not. So I think this is, even considering this, to get people in tightly knit downtown during this time when we are trying to control this infection in a way where we don't have a recurrence that would be devastating to businesses. I just think it doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense from a business standpoint. Doesn't make sense from a health standpoint. Even though they're extending it to New Year's Eve, I think that the previous actions by the council have shown that idea of it leading and opening is de facto making it happen. So I vigorously encourage the council members to not go forward with something that gives us so much personal interaction with people from all over with very limited business benefit.
My concern is the wording of the motion. If we're using the language that's in our packet, it authorizes a show on July 4th with New Year's Eve being the final cancellation date, but the implication is that the show will go forward on July 4th unless we decide otherwise. I have seen no plan for how we would do a show on July 4th, so I hesitate to say that we're ready to go forward on July 4th with a plan. I might be willing to authorize the contract, but it's the wording of the motion that gives me pause, because it certainly seems to imply that, yes, we're going to do it on July 4th unless we cancel. I think I would be willing to vote for a motion that says I'm in favor of the contract for a show to occur between July 4th and New Year's Eve, assuming that a plan is brought forth on how we would securely do that. So I would not vote for the motion in its current form, but sort of in favor of it if you follow my drift.
Go ahead, Jim.
I just had a question for the Vice Mayor. I see your point, but I thought that's where we were last time, and that we wanted additional flexibility in case there wasn't support for the 4th of July. This gives us that. I'm trying to understand. I understand the nuance that you're saying, but I'm not sure I do. The sense that we, the council, could make the decision to cancel the 4th of July. Don't feel that plans. This gives us everything I thought we were asking for last time.
The wording as it is means we would have to take an action to keep them from occurring on July 4th. In other words, we would have to cancel. I would prefer not to set the date, but approve the contract without a specific date in it, that we could work out what that date is in the future. It avoids that press issue of, we've approved there would be a big headline today, we've approved fireworks for July 4th, and then if we had to cancel, then there would be yet another headline, fireworks are canceled for July 4th, and that then causes everybody to feel bad about that issue. I'd rather just approve the contract without a date, saying that we will set a date in the future when we formulated a plan on how to carry this out. And that date could be July 4th. It's just at this point, I don't want to put the date in. That's where I'm coming from.
I would be curious to know what the date from the contract, how I read it, was that they kind of need to know that to be able to plan for that date. So to leave an open-ended date, I don't know how that would affect the contract.
Well, again, I don't feel that we have a plan in place for July 4th. July 4th is 6 weeks away, roughly. And I don't feel that we have a plan in place to how we would handle the crowds for the 4th of July at this point. So at this point, I wouldn't be willing to say, yes, it's July 4th, without having seen what plan we're going to use to make sure it's a safe event.
That was going to be my question to the town manager, how you envisioned this, if you did, occurring on July 4th, how we were going to manage these crowds and
Well,
apart from each other.
respect to the language that's being discussed, I do believe that under either scenario, the vice mayor's language or the motion maker's language, we're going to sign an agreement and they're going to order the fireworks. We're going to write them a check for half, which is $13,500, and they're going to order the fireworks. That's going to happen. When they shoot them off is essentially the question. At the first meeting in June, we're going to bring forward the authorization to proceed with the special event permit for the 4th of July. What that does is that triggers the meetings with the police and fire department, the sheriff and the fire department, and all the other stakeholders to put that process in place, and FDOT to get the bridge closed and all of that activity. So that would be the next step. And the adjustments to our standard non-covert plan would come out of that. But with respect to, I think the underlying question is, I don't know that we're going to be able to inform the public about appropriate behavior and do our best to have them adhere to appropriate behavior, but at the end of the day, how appropriate the behavior is going to be an individual decision. And if the council, in order to vote affirmatively for this, is looking for a vote or statement from me saying, yes, I absolutely can assure you that everyone will be groups of 10 or less and 6 feet or more or less apart, if that's still the standard at that point in time. I don't think I can say that. I don't think the sheriff's going to be able to say that. I think that we're going to have to rely a lot on people's behavior and possibly at some point, closing areas down, such as closing Times Square at some point if we feel that's getting too crowded, or closing some of the other areas if it's supposed to get too crowded. But that's about it. That's about the extent that I think we're going to be able to do. So if that influences how you vote, put a plan in place, and it's I can't believe that the sheriff is he's going to educate people, and as will our base people. But at the end of the day, it's too many people for us potentially to ensure that they all follow the appropriate behavior.
That's the problem. We have a contract that you want to approve today. We really don't have a plan yet as to how we're going to manage these people. By signing a contract today, you're committing to not the 4th of July, then by New Year's. Well, if you truly believe that the COVID-19 is here for the 4th of July, you have to believe it's going to be here for New Year's as well. It's not going to. The only way it goes away is if there's a vaccine, or if people are being treated for it. That, to my knowledge, is not happening and won't be happening at the end of the year. So, really, without a plan as to how you're going to keep people separated, I think voting on the contract at the moment is premature. That's my opinion.
One thing that I meant to add that I didn't, I stay in touch with folks in my home state of Ohio. One of the largest events in Central Ohio is called Red, White, and Boom. It's a huge fireworks show. Columbus, Ohio has canceled the event because they do not believe that they can control the crowds for that event, and they have a lot more space to spread out in than we do. Of course, the crowd is larger. So it's not unprecedented that different communities are looking at not having the fireworks for the 4th.
If I may too, Mayor. You know, I think I concur with the concern about how crowds behave. As far as the discussion go, I have some real concerns about, there's no scientific or medical basis to say when this would be appropriate. I would reiterate again that this is a big celebration and a weekend that's already going to be busy. There will already be lots of people in town. There's relatively little benefit and a lot of risk. Having a party like this, where you're saying we have a party at all costs, the cost could be very high. Now, we may not see it here. Some people come from somewhere else and then get back in their cars and leave. The other aspect of it is the health of the people on the island, because you think that, okay, if it's going to get crazy downtown, I'm not going to go downtown, so I won't be affected. Everybody here in this chamber and everyone who lives in this town, whether you're in a cushion in a condo or whether you're living in your own house, you are only 1 or 2 degrees of separation away from someone who will be downtown, either working, participating, or being exposed to this. The risk is real, and I think the benefits of having this are small. If anything, I would like to see some kind of condition, some kind of medical or safety condition, some kind of plan, and also schedule for fireworks at a time when there's not normally business. Some quieter time. It sounds a little ironic because the 4th of July is known for fireworks, but that's when businesses need people as opposed to a weekend that's already busy.
Mr. Mayor, as Councilmember Veach has stated a couple times, the people are already going to be here, yet we're not discussing a plan of how we're going to mitigate those crowds. We're focusing specifically on fireworks. If they're already going to be here, what's the plan? Make sure that they're social distancing on that. And as far as your comment, Mayor, with it's going away, I don't think any of us are naive enough to think that this is going to go away. Keep saying behaving. I think that the public has shown over the last couple of weeks that they know how to behave. They know how to social distance. I was out on the water yesterday, and all the hotels had their chairs plenty far apart. Everybody that asked to do things went above and beyond what we asked them to do. I think people know what they're supposed to do. If they don't feel comfortable, they will stay away. But I think that take away something that a lot of people look forward to, as you've mentioned, Madam Vice Mayor. This has been going on a long time. The plan has been around for a long time now. We have different circumstances this year. But I would be willing to amend my motion to say maybe not necessarily on the July 4th, but a date set by council should we have to change it due to the changing COVID crisis that we're dealing with. I think we'd be doing a disservice to our residents, to our visitors, to our businesses, to not at least allow this to go forward. And we can always revisit it later, as we've done twice now.
Addressing your comment about a plan for the 4th of July, it was actually something I was thinking about bringing up during my council member items anyway. One of the things I have been receiving comments from folks about is that there has been some incidents on the beach where people have called the sheriff because there's been a crowd that's been somewhat unruly or whatever, and that the sheriff has not been very responsive recently. And I'm not saying this out of criticism of them, maybe they're overwhelmed, but I think we need some meetings with the sheriff's office about how 4th of July would proceed in this town even without fireworks. I'm not hearing that they're being able to handle the situation currently.
Well, the manager and I did meet with the captain of the West District last week, and just to talk about general things that are going on here on the beach and how we're addressing the issues. We did have some reassurances and that there were going to be more people down here and so forth, and more patrols out on the beach. And really, in my mind, the big test was going to be this coming holiday weekend, Memorial Day, to see how that went. But the 4th of July is a totally different animal. It's a big party. The 4th, you know, like a party as much as everybody else, but it's a big party, and it's bringing a lot of people together. And you say, Councilman Allers, that you know, people have been responsible so far. Well, they've also been, there have been patrols out there, you know, assisting with that proposition. Now you're talking about bringing people together in an atmosphere where there's a lot of drinking, whether they're doing it here or they're doing it before they come here or whatever, and it's a party, you know, and that's another animal altogether to regulate. So, you know, those are my thoughts on that, and I do think that the sheriff is going to beef up the patrols. He told us we had assurances that there were going to be additional men down here on Memorial Day weekend. Hopefully that'll help the situation, but I'm not totally convinced about the 4th of July.
Mayor?
Sir.
Just to be clear, we're paying for additional people to be here for Memorial Day. When we do have the 4th of July event, we pay for extra people to be here as well. It's a cost on top of the fireworks. We pay for sort of the norm. Question becomes, what effort would it take on behalf of the sheriff to deal with the social distancing requirements of not spreading COVID-19 and a staffing perspective for them, and then what cost that might pose to the town? And how successful would that effort actually be?
Actually, when the news came out that the county received a great deal of money from the federal government to help out with the whole entire COVID situation, I sent an email to Commissioner Sandelli suggesting that since they had opened the parks on the beach, that we could certainly use some of that money to help pay for some extra patrols so that the town isn't shouldered with paying for extra security for the fact that people are coming to the beach. Didn't hear any mention of that when they had their meeting to discuss what they were going to do with that money. And it doesn't seem fair that the town should have to pay for extra patrols to help secure the crowd when a great deal of the crowd is on county property that they opened.
Just to reiterate, you know, talk to a couple things that have been mentioned is, one is that one of my real concerns about fireworks is that fireworks tend to concentrate people, because the closer you are to the fireworks, the more fun it is. I have plenty of neighbors who will go from where we are, 1.5 miles from downtown, and go downtown into the crowds because it's more fun when you're close to the fireworks. That gives me a real concern. The other is, you know, we've done a pretty good job, seems like, of flattening this curve on the COVID. But there's a lot of stories out about we don't know what kind of immunity you get either from when you've had it or when you get a vaccine. Because something like a measles vaccine is good pretty much for life. Something like a flu vaccine is good for 6 months. If people don't get immunity, that means that every year this thing could come back. And why I'm saying that is because I almost think we're having the wrong conversation by saying whether or not we want to have these fireworks. Because what we're talking about is a new normal, about trying to come up with a sustainable model for our island that works for businesses, where we can have people here at a manageable level more frequently, and people that are going and going to our businesses. The idea of getting huge parties with lots of people here for a very short period of time in a way that is difficult to control, and if we do control, puts our sheriff and our base people at risk of being in among these crowds, I think is deviating away from the conversation we should be having, which is what is our new normal and how can we start implementing that so it benefits businesses in the long term.
I understand what you're saying, Bill. It's just that we had no plan presented to us, and I don't want to assume that there isn't a plan that could work. maybe there isn't a plan that could work. I haven't seen a plan of any sort, so I hesitate to go forward without, some representative from the sheriff's office coming here and saying, yes, this is possible if I have X number of people. I can help you control the situation. I wouldn't ask them to guarantee it. No one can make guarantees. But at least some assurances from the sheriff's office that they feel that they could, in all likelihood, have some control over the situation.
Appropriate?
He said he was willing to amend his motion. He didn't actually amend it.
I will amend my motion as stated.
Would you restate your amended motion, please?
I will amend my motion to authorize the town manager to execute the revised contract with Garden State Fireworks in the amount of $27,000 for fireworks show on a date, between dates of July 4th and January 1st,
December 31st.
December 31st. I thought in the contract it said July or January 1st. December 31st.
Moved, seconded,
Mr. Mayor,
discussion.
I would just, based upon the Vice Mayor's comments, I think it's a fair test to see how we do on Memorial Day weekend. Want to be careful not to make public policy based on just a few knuckleheads who are not compliant. The vast majority of this island, the vast majority of people who have been visiting, have been very supportive of the social distancing, new norms, and have been very respectful. We should base our public policy based upon that we can trust people to do the right thing. This gives us a little time to see how the 4th of July will pan out. I like the fact that if it's not the will of the council to do it on the 4th of July, which I support, I think we can figure out a way to do it. The idea of doing it during the off season when we're trying to lure folks down here during really slow times. Certainly supportive of doing it on New Year's Eve. I still think, and I would challenge our town manager to look at other communities to see what best practices are and see if anybody's come up with some clever, innovative ways to make it work on the 4th of July, given all the challenges at hand. So I think this is a fair motion, and I would support it.
Roger, what is the drop dead date for this contract that they want it signed? Today?
Well, I can tell you that in all likelihood, the contract wouldn't be signed today, just by virtue of the fact that we're having this meeting.
Yeah, well, I
It
mean-
would be completed, but I would suspect that,
They're open a little bit?
I'm not in that business, but I would guess that they probably have like a 30-day or so lead time to order, because this is not a matter of they stock the stuff on the shelf, it's made to order. So I assume that June 1st would allow them to have it manufactured and delivered within 30 days, so they would be ready to shoot it off for July 4th if the council
So if we,
wanted to authorize the show at that point.
so if we had a plan put together between now and then with the sheriff's office and fire department and whatever powers to be, with a plan that set forth some sort of operational idea of how this would happen on the 4th of July at nighttime, big party going on. If we had an idea of how that would be, then we might better be able to vote on this approval of some funds. Not knowing that at this point is sort of a crapshoot, I think.
Here, one thing is, just listening to what Jim said, is that, a lot of people are canceling, as the Vice Mayor also. The other thing is, if some of the ideas I heard about how to decentralize the fireworks is to do something like put it on a barge, well out in the bay somewhere more mid-island or something, so people don't necessarily concentrate one place. That would probably change the contract. I'm sure that the costs put in the contract don't include additional charges that may be needed in order to come up with a plan that could potentially be acceptable. And the other thing is, I understand, and I appreciate that Jim uses the term knuckleheads for some people, because that's probably not my first choice of. But I think that, in fact, we do make public policy based on the exceptions, based on the people who don't follow the normal rules and don't have the common sense. This is everything from social distancing rules. I've saw the police reports of a group of 50 some odd people that were drunk and rowdy and ended up in a fight. They were not out of towners. They were mostly island residents, from what I understand. People come down. There's common sense dog leash laws. A lot of people come down and let their dog off leash as soon as they get to the beach. So really, when we're coming up with rules and setting public policy, we're doing it to try to rein in these people who don't have that common sense, the knuckleheads.
It's a very cavalier attitude to say the people that don't want to come down don't have to come down. That's fine. I get that part of it. The fact of the matter is that, as Councilman Veach stated earlier, is that we're all very much at risk with what happens down here. Be it the serving people, or be it the other people that have come into interactions, be it at the Publix, be it at the 7-Elevens. I mean, it's everywhere. So our charge is to protect the health of our people down here and the welfare of our people, and I'm going to do everything I can to ensure that. So, okay, there's a motion and a second to approve this. Discussed. Is there any further discussion? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay. All opposed? Aye. Motion carries 3-2. Okay. Next item is the Bay and school sidewalks. That's to authorize the town manager to execute a contract with Infinite Construction in response to ITB-20-17-PW Bay and school sidewalks in the bid amount of $126,013.31, and utilize all the funds from the sidewalk program to complete the project and authorize the town manager to execute the contract documents. Is there a motion to approve? Execute the contract?
Move to authorize the town manager to execute the contract with Infinite Construction.
Moved. Is there a second? Second that. Discussion?
Just a little clarity on this. So this is the sidewalk that goes down basically from Estero down to the school. And this is all completely paid for by the outside funds?
It's town funds that are paying for this project.
Okay. This is out of our general budget.
If it's out of the gas tax, if my memory's again? Capital funding.
The only question I have is, I know we're kind of unique the way we're situated, and I know we have our school crossing and our school speed zone. I have never seen a school kid in that zone in years I've lived here. So, I mean, is there a need, do students actually use, are they walking on the street after school? Is there any need for the sidewalk?
I believe that it's not just for the school. That street also goes down to the Matanzas Pass Preserve. And I know I personally, when I've gone down there, have walked in the street in order to get to the Matanzas Pass Preserve. So I'd prefer that there be a sidewalk. I think it's always safer to have a sidewalk when you've got a lot of public things in the area to reach from Estero Boulevard. I think it would make the situation safer.
Just to clarify also that that's the sort of the drop-off point for the trolley system, the tram system when it's running. So those folks who are walking to tram stop back there, which is basically their switch directions, if you will, is will now have sidewalks instead of walking in the road.
Any other discussion on the motion?
Just one more point, Mr. Mayor, if
Yes,
I may. Not part of this contract, but part of the plan was to put up one street pole there. I know the council's been talking about lighting. It's not part of this contract. Can give us direction whether you'd like us to proceed with it. We obviously will prepare for a light of some type in the future. It's just whether a question if you want to hold off on that location subject to the townwide plan for lighting. So I just mentioned that to you, so all the issues before you cast your vote.
Thank you. Okay, I'll call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. The next item is the Clean Vessel Act grant request. This is to authorize to execute a grant agreement with the Florida Department of Environmental Protection for the Clean Vessel Act grant. Is there a motion to approve that authorization?
I'll move to authorize the execution of a grant agreement with the Florida Department of Environmental Protection for the Vessel Act grant.
For a second?
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded. Discussion? Objection? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, next item is the request for town council to approve appropriation of beach renourishment funds. This is to authorize appropriation of $7,460 from beach renourishment funds to initiate a state funding application and project. Is there a motion to approve this request? Authorize the appropriation. So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion? Action? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Okay, the next item is final public comment. Anybody from the public wish to comment?
We had moved the state of local emergency
Oh, I'm sorry.
into the
I'm sorry. I forgot
agenda.
about that. Okay. Okay, state of local emergency. Bill, you wanted to talk about that?
Yeah, there's a couple things that it's still, things are changing pretty rapidly between the governor and the county. One thing that's happened is that the governor has said that vacation rentals can be allowed if the county presents a plan to the governor and that's approved. The county has done that. The county plan, and I think this is based on some guidance with the governor, is they had like 7 or 8 points. And one was that it was in-state rentals only, the first point. And I think that maybe came from direction from the governor, where the governor said, this is one of the conditions that I'm going to be looking for. Second condition was kind of redundant, because then it said, not from international places or states that have an outbreak. Which if you're only in-state only, why do you have that restriction at all? And then what kind of gave me a little bit of heartburn is the rest of it was very vague. I mean, unenforceable. They would say things have an adequate amount of time between rentals, or have sufficient cleaning products to make sure that people can maintain things at a healthy way. And I looked at those, and I thought that there's no definition of what these terms are. And I know from talking to some people in the industry, and I've had conversations with epidemiologists and some medical people, as well as some businesses, that one of the real difficulties with the timeshares is they have a one-day turnaround. So if there is someone who's infected in a room and the cleaner goes in, it's still pretty much a pretty ripe area for infection. Hotels that have limited occupancy, they have the ability to have rooms vacant for 3 days before they allow even the cleaners in, which allows the virus to expire naturally. Those kind of definitions are not in the county plan as it's going. And I don't know whether the county plan has been approved or whether it will be approved, but there's an opportunity for us to provide that guidance to people about what is considered adequate for a time between rental units for vacation rental.
Best of my knowledge, that has not been approved yet by the governor. That submission by the county, unless something happened today. Haven't heard.
No, they submitted their request letter on Saturday afternoon, which I shared with you all electronically. They did not discuss with me what conditions they were going to proffer. They just sent their request in. So their request is being evaluated based on what you saw. Council wants to weigh in. We would need to get those conditions enumerated and forwarded to the state if you feel that there are some additional conditions that they should consider. Criteria.
I share your concerns. However, I think the other thing we have to look at is fairness. I don't know that we have that kind of restrictions on the hotels. They're all pretty much going by their industry standards, I hope. So, something in me says, is it fair for us to regulate more to the short-term rentals than we have to any other group on the island? You follow my drift?
I do, yeah, because, the hotel, especially the more reputable, larger hotels, are going to be doing these practices anyway. I would hope. I would hope. Now, one thing now, with most vacation rentals, right, they are, unless they're in a condo that has some other operating model that predates the town, that they're allowed weekly rentals, right, which means one
Unless
rental for.
Weekly or a month, no
It's-
less than 7, or a month, a part of a month or a month, but no more than 2 people in per month, based on the zoning.
And it's, okay, so yes, it's quite a wide open thing. Now, when you say no less than 7, that means they're allowed one rental per week, or every rental has to be a week long?
We have a couple of very, very limited exceptions of less than a week. And those are the older condos that had that prior to the town's incorporation. There's probably 5 or less than have that. Everyone else is in either a weekly zone or a monthly zone. The way the code is currently written, and John could correct me if I'm wrong, is 7-day rental is not 3 days out of the 7 days as currently written. It's 7 days. Monthly rental is 1 per month, but it could be less than a month.
One idea to make this maybe not particularly onerous on the weekly rentals is, as just part of the emergency declarations, is to allow them to rent for less than a week, but no more than once a week. That would allow them to have shorter rentals and a time in the next renter. Now it seems like things go, you don't understand what I'm saying, because now when you say you rent for 7 days only, it means people there are 7 days. And the next one comes, if they're doing a Saturday to Saturday rental, then they don't have any kind of term rent at all. But if you were to allow them to rent for 4 days, then they have 3 days of vacancy to let the unit go fallow before the next renters come, then you are not really impinging too much on their business, but you're ensuring the safety of the cleaners and the next.
It's my understanding, isn't it, that that's how it is? If it's a weekly rental, they decide to stay only for 4 days, they just can't rent it again for the remaining week, correct?
Technically not correct.
Not correct. Well, and looking at, Bill, if looking forward at the governor's phase 2, I think a lot of Lee County's input that they put in their letter mirrors what's in his phase 2. His phase 2, it says specifically what you just said, the 72 hours between rentals and only to Florida residents. I think that they took a look at that, would be my guess, that they took a look at that, and that's part of the reason they put that information in the letter. I'm not in the short-term rental business, I don't have anything to do with it, but I know anytime I've ever stayed at one, the first thing I look at is the reviews. And if I see any bad reviews about cleanliness or not following the rules, I don't care what the price is, I'm not going to stay there. It's just me. I have a feeling that with the pandemic that we're dealing with, a lot of people are really going to rely on those reviews. If you have a place that you're not following the CDC guidelines or you're trying to break the rules, I think more people than not will choose not to stay there, and that's going to affect their business. I think it behooves them to follow the same rules and regulations that everybody else has to follow if they want to continue their business. I agree with Madam Vice Mayor. I don't think any stringent restrictions on short-term rentals that we have on other rental agencies makes any sense. Follow the governor's leave that he's already put out there. I think we'll be all right.
Well, the governor himself on his TV interviews publicly stated that he doesn't want anybody coming down from New York. How that would be enforced is a darn good question. But anyhow.
And I understand now what you're saying. I think that the level of cleanliness that is required to keep guests safe is maybe not particularly visible by guests coming in. And if it's almost like an invisible threat. Obviously, if it's not clean at all, you know. And the couple of things, just in my observations, get back to the maybe a legal classification of knuckleheads, is that when you have large vacation rentals, and these are 6, 7 bedroom houses, which we have, is that it's almost impossible to social distance those kind of situations if they fill them up. And there's very few families that are be living under the same roof who would be going into one of these big rental houses. These points are all, it's not just random kind of restrictions I want to throw out here. It's that I'm really looking at a way we can be safe and our businesses can prosper. That we have we understand what the new normal is. Because one of the analysis I've heard is that tourists are avoiding risky vacations. They're not getting on planes for long trips to Europe or wherever else. Certainly not getting on cruise ships. They are looking for close to home, safe vacations. And we have the opportunity to brand ourselves for this new normal as a place that's close and safe. And I think back to the fireworks and the way we manage our vacation rentals, we are also sending a message out to people about whether or not we're really looking after their health or whether we're just looking after their wallets.
Okay. Shall we move on?
Mr.
Yes.
Just a question for the town manager, just so we understand in this awkward transition, because the town technically allows short-term rentals right now. The state does not. The county's application to the state. Now that it's legal under the town's ordinance, the state's responsibility to enforce any infractions, short-term rentals, or is it the town's responsibility? All that work?
It's my understanding that the authorization that the council gave was caveated on the governor putting up short-term rentals. When the governor did not open up short-term rentals, then it's not applicable, not allowed in the town. So, and we embarked on a significant campaign to count people down that decision, to let them know that A, was contingent on the governor's decision, and B, the governor had not made the decision. He finally did make it on Friday, I guess it was. But therefore, they are not authorized under your order and the governor's order. Yours, I mean the council.
Just again, help me understand this. Our order and 15th. I understand the state and the ban on has expired. In that, our ordinance was drafted. The state continued their ban. We're still responsible for enforcement. Is that clear? Is that what you're saying?
Our statement.
I just didn't know. People ask me this all the time. Jurisdictionally, is it code enforcement? Is it sheriff? Are there agencies? You hear this with the restaurants, hotels, short-term rentals, and there's just a lot of confusion out there as to who jurisdictionally they call for enforcement reasons or concerns, or so. Just thought that might be helpful to have some.
Yeah. So just to help you with regard to the bars and restaurants and hotel stuff, it's the Department of Professional Regulation. They have a hotline number set up for people to make complaints about that. It's on our webpage. If they see a situation, they want to report it. The local enforcement of that, according to the governor's order, is the sheriff. Besides the regulators. So the sheriff would be the person, it's a misdemeanor, and a sheriff who would then give the person either a warning or notice to appear, whatever they deem appropriate based on the circumstances. So with respect to hierarchy, I think everyone knows that the federal government trumps the state government trumps the trumps the counties and cities, and the county trumps the towns and cities and municipalities. Sometimes orders are written that say that you can have something more restrictive, not less restrictive. So they can put something in place that says, here's our threshold, but you can put something more restrictive in if you wish to. Generally, they never allow you to put something less restrictive that I could recall in my career, but I guess it may have happened. But that's typically how it works. So I interpreted what the council did is to try to send a message to the state that we were ready for vacation rentals open. We included them in our May 15th, it's okay, start up. Try to send that message to the county and to the state that we locally here in Fort Myers Beach felt that we were ready. Apparently, for whatever reason, the governor said that, well, I want to open it up by county and I want to see a plan from the county, and that's what he came out with on Friday. The county, to their credit, promptly reacted by Saturday afternoon, had set up a plan. The state for consideration, they were asking for a Wednesday reopening. And I assume that the state will vet the county submission and give them an answer before Wednesday, or on Wednesday.
There's one question I have too, and this may be for John, is that of all the emergency declarations that have been made, how many of them have any provision that is still active that hasn't been preempted or overwritten by a deadline expiring or by the state or?
Well, if you read the Safer at Home executive order, which is, I believe, was 2020-91 and is subsequently modified by 92, technically are still in effect. And so that's, and you have to read all of these together to the point that was being made earlier, which is the vacation rental order of the governor says only Floridians are can you take reservations for? It's because there are two other orders that limit or require self-quarantine for any people coming in from hotspots from out of the state for 2 weeks. So those are still in effect. I mean, you have to look at each one to determine, and subsequent orders to determine which are still in effect, but those are still in effect.
Just to clarify, which one of ours?
Well, I would say that pretty much all of ours in the whereas type clauses refer back to the governor's plan in some state or form. So
I mean,
through our orders, we have in essence tied ourselves to whatever directives come from the state, at least to this.
I think that the more information we have, and let's say conceivably by certainly the second meeting in June, this council is probably going to be in a position for record keeping to be able to say we're rescinding all of our previous emergency declarations. From a practical standpoint, as the managers indicated, they've been superseded in one form or another by the governor's actions and orders that have come out recently, the most recent one being the one on vacation rentals.
But just to clarify, so our orders say groups of 10 or less, that's still in place.
In place.
6 feet social distancing is still in place. And our agreement that the state is in the lead on the vacation rental issue, short-term rental issue, is still in place. Those three things, just off the top of my head, are all still in place.
Because the governor's orders on those issues are still in effect as well. We are at this point as consistent as we can be with what the governor has done up to this date, in my opinion.
John.
Chair, quick question for Roger, since we're on the short-term rental conversation. This weekend, obviously, I got a lot of calls about enforcement, talking to people. Can you, for public record, maybe just let people know what that process was? What they were doing, if violations were given, not given?
I don't, well, I know that we went to places that, that appeared to have someone from, that were not local. And, people were asked if they were asked if they're a short-term renter. If they were asked if they realized that the ban was in place, or whoever they were renting from had told them that. And we asked them to make other arrangements, in particular, hopefully go to a local hotel, get a credit with the person they were renting with, and go to a local hotel, where they were allowed. I don't have any numbers as to how many people were contacted, and but I will tell you that the word I got throughout the weekend was people were very cooperative.
And will this continue? I ask that a lot.
Well, unless this council directs me to ignore the declaration of the governor, I don't see where we really have much of an option.
Thank you.
Okay?
Okay, we'll move on. Now we go to final public comment. Anybody that wishes to speak from the public? Hearing none, we'll move on to the town manager's items.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, also in the governor's phase one plan, full phase one plan, allowed gyms and museums and certain recreational facilities open. So consistent with that, we plan to open the exercise room, the weight room at Bay Oaks. It'll be done on a reservation basis for no more than 4 people beyond the hour for 45 minutes. 45 minutes to exercise, and the next group will come in at the next hour. In that 15-minute interval, staff will be in and supplementally cleaning the equipment. We're hoping the individuals who use equipment clean equipment, but we'll do a supplemental cleaning, and the next group will come in on the hour, and they'll go to 45 minutes after the hour, and then that's how we plan to do that. It'll be up to 4 people at a time on a reservation basis. The restrooms will be open only by request. There won't be open walk in, but open by request if someone needs to use them. We will allow the instructors who hold yoga and other those types of classes to hold them outside on the field if they wish to. As it pertains to Mound House, it provides a much greater challenge for keeping it clean. So our plan there would be to open it on Tuesdays and Saturdays only, from 9 to 4. It'll be self-guided experience. It won't be, and we'll just have staff on hand to monitoring spacing and distancing and any issues. 1 person per floor. And we will have one of the restrooms there available on Tuesdays and Saturdays for people who come to Mound House. The museum store will be closed. And we will begin to put that information out to the public this morning.
A call yesterday from one of the prominent yoga instructors on the island, trying to work within the system, figure out how to begin less safeguards. Was in order to sort of be respectful of the process, they had to do a special use permit for each specific class, doing 10, etc. I wonder for someone from your staff out to her and help them figure out a more practical way, because they want to do it within the guidelines of the town, for the town. But I think just the way at least the way they're reading the wording, it looks like they have to make an application every time they want to teach an individual single class. Maybe there's a way to, they're respecting all the appropriate procedures, which they're willing to do. There's a way for you all to help them with a permitting process that might be a bit more user-friendly to.
Yeah, it sounds like they may not have gotten good information I'll catch up with you or just have that person call me.
Got her name and number. Thank you very much.
There's a quick question for Roger as well. I had a call about going forward, the kids' programs reopening. Maybe if we could get some sort of information out as to when those may or may not, obviously depending on when the governor does his thing, but there's been some residents that are asking if those are going to open up, maybe just to island kids at the start and going forward.
Clearly, that whole camp thing, it creates a tremendous challenge. We're looking into it. We're talking with our sister cities in the county about what they're doing. And we haven't come up with a solution yet, but if we do, you guys will be the first to know about it.
Thank you.
Else, Mr. Manager?
So that's it for today for me. Thank you.
Mr. Town Attorney?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I have a couple items. First and foremost, I'm going to, asking at this point in time to schedule an executive session with this council to discuss two pending matters. The first matter is the beach dune walkover fluedger request. As you all know, we are still involved with that process. Upon the outcome of that process, the property owner does have the right to bring legal action against the town at the conclusion if they're unhappy with that process. So it does fall within the under pending litigation in the Sunshine Law to be able to meet in private with you all. And second, I'd like to meet with you.
Before you move to a different topic, could I ask about that?
Yes, ma'am.
My understanding is that that's a sort of mandatory mediation process that's required before litigation.
That is correct.
And who would be our representative to that meeting?
That's something that we will discuss during the.
That's what you want to talk about, okay.
The executive session, but there will have to be someone designated, as always. However, everyone understands, including the other, the property owners' representatives, their counsel, that any such representative can't be bound by what is said and can only be, assuming there is some accommodation that the parties come to an agreement on, it is subject to this council's full approval, and therefore until such time not binding on the town. So that's the first case that I would like to request a shade meeting on. The second case is James Jameson versus the town of Fort Myers Beach. I mentioned that at the last meeting. That's the inverse condemnation claim that is currently working its way back to us. That case is James Jameson versus the town of Fort Myers Beach. In and for the circuit court, it does have a case number 17-CA198. Certainly I need to coordinate that shade meeting with our outside counsel, the law firm Johnson & Anselmo, and I've already had some discussions with the lead attorney with that law firm that's representing the town in this matter about the need for an executive session. So subject to coordinating with the clerk, we'll post those properly, but we're anticipating the latest that we would have both executive sessions no later than the second meeting in June. We are going to try and set it for the first meeting of June, but I need to check with Mr. Hockman availability for that date, and then schedule it properly, post it, which is a requirement of the state statute.
We would, we would have the time allotted before the regular meeting to have this executive?
That's what I would propose, is that we would meet at 9 o'clock and take up the two executive meetings. I would anticipate that we can schedule those for 40-minute blocks in order to be able to get through them and then start the regular meeting as soon as we're finished with those executive sessions.
That's what I was going to ask, if we would just have them at 9 and then maybe start the town council meeting at 10 or 10:30.
Any questions?
You mentioned June 1st.
We're going to, we'll obviously get back to you as soon as possible, subject to coordinating with Mr. Hockman's calendar to determine his availability for that date. If not, at the latest, the second meeting in June. I don't see any reason why we can't coordinate his calendar for that date at the latest. The last item I want to mention is all directed staff to begin work on 5G ordinance. May wonder why it's not necessarily here on this agenda for first reading. Part of the reason for that is that manager and I received communications from Councilmember Adderholt late last week, indicating that the industry would like to sit down and meet with us, talk about some concerns that they have with regard to the template that we're using, which is the Coral Gables one we talked about at the last meeting. And so we're going to try and work that with the liaison that you all designated, Councilmember Adderholt, to try and make sure that what we bring to you is vetted as best as possible. And ultimately, it'll be up to you all as to how you want it to read and what you believe is appropriate. And we'll certainly give you that comparison of what the Coral Gables ordinance looks like versus ultimately what the industry is suggesting, the modifications that we make. At this point, nothing further. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
We're on the subject. I was going to give an update on comments, but since at length with the government affairs for Verizon for the state of Florida, and ironically enough, he doesn't keep Coral Gables, so very familiar with the ordinance, and they would like to come in and give us a presentation about how they've been working cooperatively with the communities in which they're 5G at. Also want to talk a little bit about what's 5G space. One of the things that was particularly intriguing to me, the things I hear quite frequently on this island is that people would like their internet service. So one of the things that Verizon is pushing is wireless internet, 5G space, which would really be tremendous for our island. So it was a very cordial conversation. I think it's an opportunity for them to come in and how they can work with communities in a way that's cooperative and positive, in ways that hopefully won't put us at the bottom of the list of deployment to regulatory climate, because it does impact where they go and when they go to two areas. And I want to just be careful that we're not regulating ourselves out of the priority list to get 5G implemented. And I just think it'll be a good learning opportunity, certainly for myself and hopefully for everyone, for them to come in, share a little bit about what their intentions are, how they work with communities. Ask about Councilor Veach's, I thought, excellent suggestion to try to figure out how they could partner with our new lighting system. I think the track record with FPL utilizing their poles has been great, unfortunately, but I know we're looking at a wide variety of options, but they're certainly open to that as well. That's all I have on that.
Thanks, Jim. I knew you were the right man for the job. Okay, we'll go on to council member items.
I had a question for John.
Go ahead.
John, some time ago, we had some controversy swirling about weekly rentals outside of the whole emergency. Before COVID even came along, there were some people saying there was a question about interpretation, et cetera. And my memory was that the prior council instructed you to come up with some modifications to the statutes to make things more clear. And one of those modifications was complete. My memory says to me that there was another one that was going to be done that never came to fruition.
I think that there was a continuing discussion about the language about what is a monthly rental and trying to clarify that. I know that I've had subsequent conversations with staff, and I don't mean to speak for Mr. Green, but I certainly would defer to him and his department on that issue, since he is the individual who is going to be or his department is going to be responsible for interpreting and applying that. But That, I believe, is out there, and his department is working on that. I will check with him before I leave today to find out where that is and get back to each one of you on that issue through the manager.
I think some clarification would be very helpful to the industry, because I'm constantly getting questions and I have trouble understanding it, so I know how they have trouble understanding it, so if we could clarify those times. And Dan asked a question today, and the answer even surprised me to Dan's question. So some clarification, and if you could bring that back to us and at least give us some idea of the progress about that, I'd appreciate it.
There's, it's funny, because I actually thought there was a different question. The question that I thought was sort of outstanding, if you will, was this question of family.
That was yet another, yes.
So, and when we last talked about that, and prior council, when we last talked about that, we asked, if you take family out of it, what's the control, if necessary, for occupancy? And the discussion was 2 per bedroom, perhaps +2, whatever. And the discussion morphed into, well, the fire department controls occupancy, and it kind of bogged down there. So with respect to both of those issues, we can have a discussion at the MP, and you could tell us what you want us to do, and we'll draft the language to reflect whatever that policy is.
Great. I had forgotten
because
about that one.
So, I think...
You are correct,
I think,
we did talk about that, and...
I think what we have is what we have. Clearly, let's keep the current policy and tighten up the wording. That could be your direction after the M&P discussion, or it could be to make certain changes that I alluded to today.
And I'll wait to give my thoughts on that when we discuss it.
Okay. Councilmember items. Councilman Veach.
Okay, yeah, first thing I have is, we penned this letter for the council to submit. As we mentioned when Kevin was here briefly, is that there's some opportunity here, I think. Might want to touch base with Mayor Oren again, just to come up with timing. This, my understanding, is currently in committee, and I've come up with a list of the different members of the House committees for transportation and for rules. And I also would like to come up with versions of these letters that target more like what residents would want to say, or local, maybe outside of council, just to distribute to them if they want to start a campaign. And I think that Councilman Adderholt's really good idea of trying to mobilize this Alberta Army, I think, is this may be a good chance for us to at least try a trial run of that and see if we're going to try to get our voice louder in some of these matters through a grassroots movement. So, which status is this? It's gone out?
It's
Not signed
pending
yet.
the mayor's signature.
Right, and right now you're targeting chairman of the Transportation Committee and the Committee on Water.
That's who it's addressed to.
Okay, I think maybe with approval we can maybe have another letter and send it to some key members of these committees, maybe with Florida roots, or direct it to some people we have other relationships with that are in different states.
We can add a copy to Florida delegation, if you wish.
I think it's a great letter, Councilor V. We could just have this letter signed by the mayor go to our 2 United States senators here in Florida and our own congressman here in Florida. I think at the Senate, this sounds like this is a debate also occurring within the state of Florida. There are various special interests at war with each other on this issue, and I think that it's important for our 2 senators to know, signed by this many local officials. I think it would be a great message to send to our own. When you CC a delegation, it doesn't have the impact as if you write them the letter. I think the two separate letters to the Florida senators and our own House member at this point, that's in transition, but certainly the 2 U.S. senators helpful down the road. Particularly, it sounds like because this battle seems to have a lot of different constituencies in the state. It's a great letter.
Be in agreement with Councilman Adderholt's suggestion.
I would too.
I definitely think Francis Rooney ought to get a letter, because he's a friend of ours. That sounds good. Okay, anything else, Bill?
One question and I kind of touched on this and some other things, but, okay, my understanding is that like social distancing rules as it applies to like, let's say restaurants, that, who are the jurisdictions that would enforce that? And if I've had some constituents come to me and saying they've seen some obvious social distancing violations at local restaurants. Is that part of the authority that regulates restaurants in general, like for cleanliness and liquor license violations?
It's the Department of Business Professional Regulation. They have a hotline. I believe it's on our website for people to find it there. We'll put out again today with our information that typically comes out after our council meeting. If we receive a complaint, we will send someone by to look at it. We will tell the manager on duty that we think they're in violation and please take appropriate action. If they don't, we'll call the sheriff. So that's the protocol if the town's contacted directly.
If someone does see a violation, your advice is just to have them contact the police in the town and this.
Well, we're not going to say no to anybody who contacts us. We're not going to say you call the wrong number, call somebody else. We're going to try to be provide local service and go out there and see the situation and verify it but that at the end of the day, the two enforcement agencies for that are the sheriff and the Department of Professional Regulation. You can ask the person to comply, but we can't do anything.
All right, that's all I have. Thank
Able to incorporate everything in our meeting today, so I have nothing further. Thank you.
Allers?
Just a couple things. I'm sure all the council saw the letter from Mr. Wood at Waterside. That came through, I think it was yesterday. Question for Roger is reading that letter and the permitting, I'm assuming you saw the letter as well?
Good.
What claims of the permitting, can you comment on the things he stated in that letter?
What I can comment is that the letter was forwarded over the weekend to our building staff. Our building staff has already reached out to the parties to work on the issues.
Thank you. One other issue I have is over this last week I was speaking with a gentleman that does like mosquito net kind of control things, and there's this product out now that's very environmentally friendly. They're looking. There's only 2 businesses in the country that are using it as a testing. They're looking for places that have areas that they can test, monitor, capture mosquitoes, gnats, things of that nature, to see how this chemically free agent works. And so far, they've been doing it down. They had some good headway down in Naples, but then when COVID came, obviously things got shut down a little bit. So they're looking for places that would be interested in using their free service. They'll take care of all of it. So I told him I would bring it to the council for discussion to see if you'd be interested in maybe getting a presentation from him, learning a little bit more. He obviously would do a much better job of explaining to us ins and outs of what it is and how it works and the whole process than I would be able to do for you. But I just wanted to bring that up if there was any interest in that.
There.
Maybe we could have a joint meeting with the Fort Myers Beach Mosquito Control District.
Well, I was going to say, you could do that if you wish, or you could just,
Give it to them.
we could put them in touch with the Mosquito Control District, whichever you prefer.
Right.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yes, Mayor.
Since our last meeting, I've noticed a couple of our fellow council members have made appearances on TV, and I've gotten some feedback from friends and neighbors who felt that, even though I disagreed, they felt that the council members were kind of representing, they were the entire council when they were really commenting as themselves. And as I thought about this, I thought maybe that was something that maybe we could have, and I'm not talking about an official policy, but maybe kind of an informal policy, that if we are contacted by the media for an appearance, that we would coordinate with our PIO about, I would prefer that our PIO make our statements for us. That way you don't have the problem that people take that when one of us appears on TV that we're speaking for the entire council. The PIO speaks for all of us. I'm not saying that we would never appear on TV. There may be an issue where Mr. Adderhold is the point person and it would be appropriate for him to be commenting. But I'd love to have a discussion about how we work with our PIO and maybe incorporate that idea that when we are contacted by the media, that we at least talk to her and get her guidance on how we would present ourselves about a particular issue, etc. Again, I'm not saying this to criticize anyone's appearance, but how people took the appearance. Guess I'm looking for, is anybody else interested in discussing?
I'll discuss it.
If you want to
I
put it
had-
to an MMP, that would be fine.
I'll discuss it right now. I was criticized for making announcements on television. News media, when something's going on, this was new to me in my newly position as a mayor. I want to speak with the mayor. That's what they do. They call me. They ask me to speak in front of their cameras. And I did that quite a bit last couple of weeks. And I understand that there's been lots of criticism out there as to some of the things that I did say at times. How he's a dictator, how dare he say the things that he says, blah, 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 blah. I'll tell you that every interview that I have with the media, I always preface the person that's interviewing me, always, at least once, if not twice, I preface my remarks by saying, I'm only one member of the council, one vote, so what I say is primarily my opinion as to how I interpret affairs at the time. Now, do I think a lot of times that I'm on board? Well, most of the time I do. Most of the time when I make my comments, I feel that I'm expressing the opinions of. Am I going to all the time? Of course not. Of course not. I mean, that's demonstrated by the way our votes go. Anyhow, I want to make that point. Now, I'm all for letting the PIO make announcements for the whole council as to council action that has taken place, and there's a record of it. Sure, why not? When they come to me and ask me my opinion, I'm going to tell them my opinion. I do want you to know that I always preface it by saying that I'm just one. I'm just one, and I always do. And you can ask the ladies, and I believe that most of them will tell you that. So, that being said, that's my discussion.
Response to that would be, this was not meant as a criticism of you at all, Mayor. As I said, it's the way people took it. But no matter how many times...
That is a criticism. That is a criticism, the way people took it, because that's the way it got back to me as a criticism. So it is a criticism, which is fine. That's fine.
If I may finish.
Sure you may.
No matter how many times you say I'm just speaking for myself, that's not what's coming across. So I've learned this lesson. I've been interviewed and I was displeased with how it came across when I've done it, and so I've become very reticent about it. I just think that it might be good for us as a council to consider how we're going to work with the PIO. There may be circumstances where, as I said, that person wouldn't be speaking for us, but have this person on board now. I feel it's been one of the failings of this town is our failure to communicate. Things, we don't communicate well, and because of that, rumors get started, and it causes a lot of consternation in the town. And if we could work with our PIO in a better way to get the word out about things in general. I think as a council, it would benefit us to maybe have a conversation about those types of things.
I'll talk to this too, because I've been on TV a few times. And I think, you're right. I mean, you talk to somebody for 5 minutes and they'll find that 5-second soundbite they'll put on there. And I do preface it with saying this is, my personal views and all that, but they don't usually put that on the news. My concern is, though, and understanding working with some of the TV reporters, is that there's immediacy to their need. So if they are assigned a story for the day, they have a window of 2 hours or 3 hours where they're going to get a comment. If we could work it out with the PIO so it worked in a way that she could be as responsive as an individual of us as an individual could be, so they can get in that news cycle without having to say, what do you want to talk about, and go through and then talk to other people and come up with a fairly vanilla statement, then I think that would be an effective way to communicate. Sometimes, the PIO should have more information about what's going on than us as individuals, especially when they talk about clarifications on what's going on as far as all the different regulations. That would be a really great point person for them.
Just to be clear, if I may, we get contacted by the media all the time. And when we do, and it was before Jenny was here and now after, we answer their question based on actions taken by the council, or we say, this matter has not been taken up by the council yet, and there's no policy decision yet on this particular issue. So we give them if there's a voted on policy, or even if it's by a motion discussed here and we take a position, we tell them that. So lots of times I want to get someone on camera, and we really don't, as a general rule, don't go on camera. We say that's the position, because we, like the vice mayor was alluded to, don't want to be put in a position where we're answering for you individually. So if you're one of the persons perhaps who voted against that particular policy, we don't want to answer for you, or we don't really want to even answer for one of you who voted for it. That's your job, to answer for your votes. So that's how we do it. Now, what they're trying to do is, once they have sort of the official policy, then they're trying to go and find out who's a proponent and who's an opponent, and try to, for the interest of the news cycle, to get two people saying opposite things about one particular point. That's their job, because that's what creates interest and ratings and things of that nature. You'll see, and I give credit to our local papers. They're usually pretty careful. They usually will get someone who says, I'm for it, and here's why, and they'll have someone else in their paper who's say, well, I was against it, and here's why, and they do a fair job of reporting both sides of the issue. The electronic media is, as someone said, is a very small window. Our story is only good for an hour or two before there's another local story that takes over for that, and they're working on that second or third story. So I think the real point is that, and I've seen this in other jurisdictions, you have to just continually say that the council's policy is this, and if your policy is different, your position is different, to clarify that. And at the end of the day, you can only hope that they report it accurately. But if you want to discuss it further, we'll be glad to put it on MP. If the majority of you want to, if two of you or more of you want to discuss it, and you can delve into it. But at the end of the day, you're at the mercy of the reporter.
I guess I'll throw it out as an invitation to Jennifer. If she's got some tips to share with us, that she wants to be on the agenda for a future MMP, I would love to hear those tips, because I'm a novice at this myself. So I throw it out as an invitation.
We will definitely give you tips as best we can.
If I may, Mr. We're talking about two separate issues here. How the town can better tell its. And we have a PIO, and I think there's a great opportunity to tell our story. That's worthy of an MMP meeting as well, and also for her to give any tips that she might. On the other hand, we've elected our mayor. He was unanimously elected by the town. media wants to talk to a face, a representative of our town, and I have absolutely no problem with our mayor going on TV, sharing his thoughts and concerns, issues of the day. We voted for him unanimously. No issues with it. I think he's handled himself well. Haven't always agreed with him, but he's my mayor. And I'm pleased that he's on TV. I'm pleased that he's telling the story. So I have I think we're all elected in our own right. We have every right to go before any media outlet and share our own opinions. I think it's appropriate to preface it the way everyone seems to, that it's just their opinion. But the media doesn't want to talk. I have a generic quote from a PIO. They want to talk to the mayor. They want to talk to individual councilors who are leading on issues. I think the reality of, I mean, it sounds great, but the reality of it is they're very short news cycles now. Instant news and it's instant response. Timing is critical. So we could do a better job having a media strategy for the town and to tell our story better. We have a great story to tell. With respect to the mayor getting a call from a TV station who needs a quote, within the next hour, very comfortable with that happening, because we can't talk to each other because of sunshine laws. It puts the mayor in a tougher spot. He's got to sort of calculate, what's the temperature of the council. That's a tough spot to be in, particularly with a newer council. So I'm sympathetic to his quandary there, and I think he's done a fine job, even though I haven't always agreed with him. I think he's representing our town fine.
And just to clarify, despite the fact that the mayor refuses to accept that this is not meant as a criticism, comments that I received were not just about the mayor. So I find no fault in anyone in bringing this up.
Any other items? No. Okay. Don't have anything else to add to that. Okay. We'll have another meeting here on Monday, June the 1st, 9 a.m. We'll also have a work session on Thursday, June the 5th at 9 a.m. There's nothing else to bring before the group for the good of the order here. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Moved.
Second. Opposition? And adjourned. Thank you very much.
Want me to reach out to them, or this is the?
No, we'll pass it on.